right, folks. All right. Hold on. Let me get this over to this tab. All right. Oh, what's that? We already got two people in. One of those me, though. All right. Looks like we already got two people in. I'll give it another second. All right, chat. All right. Can we get some Franks in the chat? All right, folks. We'll get started now. We are back. It is Friends Who Ramble. This is the Benny Fazio mock draft, rookie mock draft 2.0. Of course, I did the mock draft 1.0, what? 2 weeks ago? Something like that. So I'm back again. I mean, I compared my notes. I consulted with a few teams in the draft, got a better feel for maybe where their heads at and where they might be leaning personally, because, part of it was me trying to establish a narrative, put what I thought was perhaps a new strategy out there. I think a lot of people, and I do know for a fact that when McMorrow was kind of doing his own game planning, I think he was taking more of the traditional approach. So take one of the quarterbacks early, take a wide receiver, take a running back, do all that, and kind of cover all the bases. But as I said on the last one, I just feel like it's such a unique situation that there's a different way to go about it, and I feel like what I might have here. Could really change the league, and it could really change the trajectory for McMorrow here. So we're going to get into that for a second. We're also going to talk about some of the trades that went down. But as always, we're brought to you by our proud sponsor, starting with Sundog Multimedia. Sundog is an online communication and social media company. What started as a personal tool has since evolved into something much bigger, allowing users to communicate, research, and discover things that impact their lives and daily decisions. Sundog will collaborate with you to build and execute a modern yet nimble social media strategy by utilizing innovative and traditional media principles. Sundog is also a proud supporter of the Stop Soldier Suicide Foundation. You can follow Sundog on Instagram at Sundog_multimedia. That's Instagram at Sundog_multimedia. Brains, brawn, and true professionalism. That's easy peasy moving and service. Muscle for hire, moving assembly errands, you name it, they will do it. Easy peasy is a multi-service team. If you need something, just ask. All right. So as I said in the intro, we are here to do the mock draft, but I do think it's more appropriate to first start off with the two trades that went down this past week. Of course, Wallace, completely ripped off McMorrow's bit with the double trade accept. But McMorrow's a nice guy. He said that it's a league thing. Everybody in the league does it. So I think it's kind of an open IP situation there. He doesn't care who uses it. There's no copyright on that strategy. But starting with it, it was first Wallace. Team I Love My Mom made a trade with Alex Aruri. Team Slippery Pete. Zach Charbonnet for the 8th pick in the second round of this year's rookie draft. And that was immediately followed up with a trade between Wallace and Simcoe, the Bussy Boys. It was Bowers, Pop Douglas, and a 27th third in exchange for TJ Hawkinson, Brees Hall, and a 26 first round pick. Hold on, let me pull this up first. Hold on, let me just see something real quick. Yeah, I don't know about any of that shit. All right. So first of all, it was Charbonnet for the 8th pick in the second round. I don't know. I mean, I get it. Wallace wanted Charbonnet. He gets a handcuff for Ken Walker, who is, a fairly elite back, but he seems to struggle to stay healthy. He seems to struggle to put together a, full, complete season. So I understand him wanting to get that. Charbonnet was really good when he was filling in for the injured Ken Walker. He didn't really do too much when Walker was healthy, so it's not really a 1A, 1B situation. It's very much a starter and a backup situation, but Charbonnet is probably one of the better RB2s in the league. So I understand it from that point. I just feel like Pete kind of made it too easy for Wallace there. I feel like it was just kind of handing it to him for a mid late second. I'm sure Alex would, you know, he'll probably tell you, well, I feel like I can attach that second onto somebody and make a trade better. He's probably doing something. He's trying to trade like Mike Evans in that second for like Rasheed Rice or something. So like I'm sure, he feels like that second rounder attached to a player, it probably has more value than trying to trade Charbonnet to somebody that doesn't own him. But I don't know. If I was Wallace, this feels like a no-brainer smash accept situation. So it feels like a good deal for him. I don't quite get I don't quite get it yet from Pete. I feel like he could have gotten more, but it's the reigning champs. Maybe some people, they just feel like they win the title and then they can, sort of fuck off and just not put much thought into things. So maybe it's more of a loosey goosey championship hangover situation. But yeah, that just felt like too easy of a trade for Wallace. I feel like he could have made him work a little bit harder for that, but whatever. He'll probably attach that to some pick and overpay for somebody and whatever. Moving on to the next trade. That was more of the blockbuster trade. Of course, as I already said, it was Bowers, Douglas, and a 27 third in exchange for Hawkinson, Brees Hall, and a 26 first. I don't know. I don't know. I've thought a lot about this trade, and I'm not really sure how I feel about it. I don't know whose side I would necessarily take more. I don't know if I fully love it for either side, if we're being totally honest. I mean, on one side, Wallace, he did go out and he did get probably, the best tight end in the league right now, both in terms of production, but then also, in terms of dynasty value. Brock Bowers was a rookie and he was the top tight end in the league. Was he actually tight end one? Let me check that. I guess he finished standard tight end two, PPR tight end one. I don't know where that falls with our half point PPR, but he goes out and he gets Bowers. I just feel like it's not, I don't know, paying up for these guys. It just feels a little crazy to me. I feel like a tight end, it's either you have it or you don't. You got to kind of fall into it or not. I feel like Kittle was a guy I got lucky with. First of all, I just robbed George blind for Kittle. I traded him like some bullshit pick and Ben Sino to get George Kittle. Who I think still has 3-4 years left of being an elite tight end. So that was just a robbery. So in situations like that, you got to take it. But Kittle was also a 30-year-old tight end. I feel like he was starting to get kind of that stink on him that people have in this league when, guys get a little bit older. I think Bowers, I just think going out and paying a ton for a guy like that, I'm not sure I totally love that move for Wallace. I feel like, he does have a lot of guys on his team, but I feel like there's some guys that are in limbo too. So I feel like it was kind of worth hanging on to a guy like Brees Hall or seeing it through with TJ Hawkinson or just holding on to your first rounder. So I don't necessarily love what he gave up, even though he got Bowers in return. If I had to pick a side, I'd say that Simcoe won the trade. The spirit of what he did, I think, was much better for his team than on Wallace's side. I don't know if I'm sold on Brees Hall. I mean, that was year 2 coming off of an ACL injury. That's when you're really supposed to turn it up. And I think he got worse. I think he got worse than he did the year coming straight off of the ACL injury. There was some weird shit going on with the Jets, so there's always that's going into it. But they did bring in Braylon Allen, who was really young, and he was really good as a second running back there. So we'll see what Aaron Glenn can bring in. That's definitely some new energy. They're going to try and take this into a different, direction than the Jets were heading in. But I get it. I get it with going after a guy like Brees Hall. Simcoe desperately needed a running back. I just don't know if he was the guy. But at the same time, the market's the market. It's much easier to say that he could have gone out and gotten this guy or that guy, but the market doesn't always dictate that. So, I get it. I don't know if I love trading away. I know I was just saying, I don't know if I love giving up all that for Bowers, but at the same time, I don't know if I love trading Bowers away for that return just yet. Hawkinson, he's a good tight end, but I feel like if you want to be a fantasy relevant tight end and really be an elite fantasy tight end, you need to be a top 2 target on your team. I don't think Hawkinson is that. He can get saved a bit by the Vikings pass volume, but I mean, I think he's still firmly behind, obviously, Jefferson and then Jordan Addison in the pecking order. So I just feel like that kind of keeps him totally out of that elite tight end tier for now. He can still put up huge weeks, but I just think week to week, I don't totally love it. But then, of course, Simcoe does get the first, I feel like that was more of the prize on top of everything. So, like I said, the spirit of what he got, he definitely made the savvier move compared to Wallace, but I just don't know with Brees Hall and TJ Hawkinson. I'm not totally sold on them as dynasty pieces, so I don't totally love that in the return for Bowers. But again, I like the idea. And Simcoe, he's starting to fill out that team. He's becoming more feisty than he was a week ago. So good on him. But that's really all I got on those trades. We're not really here to talk too much about that. Who gives a shit what I think about these trades? I want to get more into the mock draft. So I'm going to share my screen. Share screen. Sleeper. All right. Get that out of there. Okay, everybody can see this? Looks like it. Let's see what the chat's going to say. Yeah, I don't know what those comments mean. Whatever. Okay, let's start at the top. So last week I debuted what I thought was my genius strategy, and I still think it is. I think that I completely changed the game. Of course, you don't really see this situation that McMorrow's in typically when it comes to a rookie draft, having this many picks, having them in those sort of tranches, the first three, the second and the third trios as well. But I think it breaks up nicely for McMorrow. I think that he can come out of this, totally dominating these first 14. I'd even say first 17 because he does have that fifth pick in the second round as well. But those first 17 picks, he can just build a roster that I think can play well and put him in a position. And one thing that I have, and I have some notes that I have written down, but he has a ton of picks next year as well. He doesn't need to hit on everything here, but I also don't think that he needs to just package a bunch of picks together and overpay to get a guy for proven production. He has that many picks that I think he might as well just take these dart throws on all these first rounders, right? It's one thing to say, well, he can't hit on all these first rounders. At the same time, I don't know if it's worth just packing all of them up and giving him less darts and trusting him to hit on all of those. Because, if you're going to package 2 or 3 of those picks together to get one guy, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to fill out the roster long term. I think it's definitely we're going to have to see, but I think a lot of people are going to try and, almost be vultures and say, hey, I can give you this guy, but you're going to give me all these first. I think McMorrow is a little bit smarter than that. I think that he's been wise to hold on to these picks, especially through this point. I think that there's really no sense unless it's an absolute home run offer that he receives, but there's really no sense in him trading these guys until we're really on the clock, I'd say. So let's start at the top. So this is where I'm still going to mix it up a bit. I did compare notes with McMorrow, and he made, I saw what he was thinking, and I do think that it's wise to take a wide receiver in this first 3. As you guys might remember in the last mock draft, I had him going running back, running back, running back. I do think that this running back class is that good, but that's also part of the argument why he shouldn't go 3 running backs here, right? McMorrow's goal with these picks should be to get the QB1, the RB1, the wide receiver 1, and the tight end 1. And he can do that with all of these picks here. So, as I said, I don't think that that 4th pick is a threat to take a quarterback. I just don't think that Amaral is going to be looking to use that to fill out his team. I think that he really wants to stick and pick here. So I don't think that that's a position of need at all for him. So I also don't think that because of where all these other picks are, right? I don't think Wallace is going to trade it from 8. To get a quarterback either. And I just think that anybody else trading in, I don't know if anybody's going to love Ward enough to give up whatever it would take to trade up into this 4th pick and not have Amaral be moving back in the first round. So I don't think people are going to want to give up players to move up and get Cam Ward. So I think Amaral is going to stick at 4 and pick there. There's no threat of taking a quarterback. So I still don't think that he should take a quarterback here. He should wait on that. I think that the first overall pick, though, it could be either one. You could go running back, but I think that he should just go wide receiver, just get his receiver here. Really, it doesn't matter. You have 3 picks in a row, so it doesn't totally matter. I'm going to go with Tet McMillan. I think that's who McMorrow has as his first overall. It feels like maybe some guys are starting to gain some steam, but I think Tet is still the top wide receiver in this draft. I've been back and forth on whether I think he's going to be a top 10 pick or not. Last week I would have said it feels like he's going more towards 15. It feels like the pendulum swinging back a little bit. And he might be in the back end of that top 10 now. I've seen some guys mocking him to Jacksonville. I've seen it to Carolina. I do think that those would be interesting options. So I think just get your wide receiver here. Get who you think is the wide receiver 1 right now. That seems to be the consensus. Take care of it. It's all. Moving on, I'm going to go two running backs here, right? The first one, I'm going to take Amari and Hampton. The order doesn't totally matter here. I'm kind of just, it's a little tongue in cheek, but I would just take Hampton. He seems to be the consensus RB2 right now. He just had an unbelievable combine. He's going to go probably in the first round, and he might end up, in maybe a sexier landing spot than, Ginty ends up in. But the reason that I'm moving Ginty back to third is for two reasons, really. One, it's just kind of funny to be like, I can't believe this guy fell to third. If he goes on and he lives up to the expectations, you can always just have that joke in your back pocket. Holy shit, who let this guy fall to three? Blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it's also just a little sales trick, And, I used to sell Subarus. I know what I'm doing on that sales floor. Sold a car my first day on the floor, whatever. You're dangling the carrot in front of people. Everybody just thought he was a lock to go 1-1. All of a sudden, hey, he's here at 3. Whether that's Amaral trading up one spot, Wallace trying to move up from 8, or somebody that's not in the first round saying, well, hey, it's a third pick. All of a sudden, they feel like, hey, I could get this guy. Now that might generate a little more interest. People might say, well, if he's willing to let him fall here, then, maybe I can just swing in and get him, and I don't have to trade all the way up to 1. I'm only trading up to 3. And then you just charge a little bit of a premium on that draft spot. So, I think McMorrow should still just take him. But I think if you want to try and get serious calls about Ginty, where a lot of people might just be rolling him out thinking he's a lock for the first overall pick, you just dangle that carrot out there, feel it out. You got 10 minutes. But at the end of the day, I think you should just make the pick and take the guy who's, one of the better running back prospects we've seen in a while. So, take Ginty here. You get the 2 running backs and you get the wide receiver. You get the running backs 1 and 2. Of course, that second spot could be, a bit fluid. We'll see how things play out. But then you also get your wide receiver 1. You don't give Amaral the chance, and maybe Amaral really loves Egbuka or Luther Burden or Matthew Golden, who's rising. Maybe he loves him that much that's actually his wide receiver 1. But I think you just take that out of Amaral's hands. He's not going to go quarterback. I would think it would be foolish for him to go tight end. So now he's either taking the RB3 or the wide receiver 2. And I think that, those are still going to be good players, but you just take that option away from Amaral, right? That's a little bit of gamesmanship right there as well. So moving on to that next one. And for the record, I understand that Ginty could go to some shitty team. And maybe these other guys, if they go in the late first, they might go to a sexier spot. Don't do that. Okay. We all saw it happen with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He went to the Chiefs. All of a sudden he went over Jonathan Taylor, even DeAndre Swift, who, isn't quite on Taylor's level, but I'd still say is much better than Clyde. So don't do, thank you, chat. Don't do that. Okay. Don't let that dictate landing spot, anything like that. You could do that with the running backs 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Ginty is the running back 1. I'm just kind of being a troll here, picking him at 3. But don't be stupid. Moving on to the 4th pick, Amaral. He needs wide receiver here. He needs running back. He could address either of those. Chase Brown and Tracy, they were great. Those have been unbelievable finds for him. He got them for very cheap. But I mean, they're day 3 guys. Tracy for sure, he was a 5th rounder. Chase Brown, I think he was about the same. Let's just remember that when we're talking about pedigree. Any running back that he takes here is a significantly better prospect than either of those guys. We just know these day 3 guys, they can fall off the face of the earth like that. So you don't want to risk it. You don't want to feel too comfortable at running back. He probably needs wide receiver more. I just don't know if this pick warrants taking wide receiver. So I would just go, continue to cash in on this running back class. And then take who you think is the 3rd best. I'm going to go Henderson. I'm going to go Trevion Henderson. I think that he has a case for the RB2 there. I think he immediately steps in, and he's already Amaral's best running back. That's no disrespect for the 2 guys that he had. Chase Brown is a volume machine, but again, we just don't know. We don't know how they can fall off. They just don't have the pedigree that Henderson has. He's unbelievable. He's getting unbelievable comps. He's putting up great athletic numbers at the combine. We'll see. I don't know what he's doing for his pro day, anything like that. But really good running back class. I think it just greatly outclasses the wide receivers here. So even though he probably needs wide receiver slightly more, I think that you can pick up on that later on with your 3rd and 4th picks in the 2nd round. Take the running back here. Now we're back to McMorrow. Those next 3 picks. Now I think this is where he can, Wallace isn't going to take Warren at 8, but that could be a trade up spot for some teams. We know that Wallace is trying to sell it. So I think they should take Warren in this tier. I think you should take another running back. And then I think this is where you should take Cam Ward. So I'm going to go Warren here. I'm going to take Judkins, right? I mean, that's another guy that's in that elite tier of prospect. McMorrow right there. So he's got his wide receiver 1. He's got the running back 1, 2, and 3, who's now, teaming up with Bucky Irving. That's 4 running backs right there on his team. That's an unbelievable stable of young running backs. And then, again, you're just doing the carrot trick. Cam Ward, now somebody might say, holy shit, he's a little bit more accessible. Maybe I can trade up and get him. It's not as hard to get him now. Where in a lot of rookie drafts, Cam Ward would be a top 2 or 3 pick probably, right, in Superflex. So now all of a sudden, if a team can get him at 1.7, that changes things. So dangle the carrot, but McMorrow, he needs quarterback bad. And again, I don't think anybody's going to want Cam Ward bad enough to trade him whatever he could use to get those guys. And, take a guy now. Take a chance on a guy now. You don't want to wait until next year. You can use these dart throws on these running backs and these wide receivers. If those guys don't work out, if Cam Ward doesn't work out, then yeah, next year you can look to address that. But I think continue to just take those dart throws. Don't trade these picks. See who hits and who doesn't. I think a lot of these guys are really good. I think he's going to come away with a really good team just from this draft. But, even if some of these guys don't pan out, then that's when you can address it next year. But let's just hold on to these picks. Don't be trading them away. I don't know if the proven talent that you could get trading those picks is going to be worth it. So take Cam Ward here. Get your quarterback. I cannot wait to show you guys McMorrow's team when this is all said and done. Now we're at Wallace. I was going to try and mock a trade. Feels like a pain in the ass because I can't really put that on here anyway. So I'm just going to play it straight. I don't know if I'm going to mock any trades at any point. Wallace can kind of address everything. He's got a couple good running backs. Derrick Henry. He's got James Cook. He's got Ken Walker, but he just traded Breece Hall. I think Derrick Henry, he might be Iron Man. I think that he can play, late into his 30s. So, I'm not too concerned about the standard, age concerns that you might see with a guy that's 31. I think that he's going to continue to play through that. James Cook, he did just have a great year, but I mean, that was a total outlier of a season in terms of touchdowns. I don't know if I'm going to rely on that. And then Ken Walker can't put together a full season. So he just traded Breece Hall. I feel like Pacheco might be dead. We saw how terrible he looked coming back from that injury last year. So he doesn't really have too much after that with running backs. I think he needs a running back here. Again, he's like Amaral too, where he, also needs receiver. He's got old receivers. I just don't know if I trust it. He could probably use a better quarterback. I just, CJ Stroud, he got the yips last year. Trevor Lawrence, maybe a bust. I mean, first round mock has him as like a 100% bust potential, I'm pretty sure. So, that's who I'm going to trust. And then, I think tight end's really the only position where he's really set at. So, he's not going to take any of these other tight ends. So I think he should just target running back here. I'm going to go Caleb, what's his name? Caleb Johnson. I think that he's just going to be the next running back up. He's in that elite tier again. I think that kind of rounds off the elite tier of running backs. I think that there are other guys that are going to push, and they might still be over some of these wide receivers. But I think as far as the guys that you have to have, I think Caleb Johnson's the last guy in that thing. So I'm going to go with Johnson there. He needs that other running back to replace Breece. I kind of feel like it was a preemptive move, expecting to use the pick on a running back like that. So, it's also me trying to be a little predictive as well. But all right, moving on to 9, 10, 11, this last trio of McMorrow picks. I think this is where he can just kind of fill out the rest of that roster, right? So I'm going to go with the next guys up. My guys on my big board. I'm going to go Egbuka, who I think is a wide receiver 2 here. I think that he could push for being that wide receiver 1. There's a good argument there. I'm going to go Matthew Golden. I don't think that the sleeper ADP stuff is totally caught up to the post-combine reactions, but I expect Golden to be a little bit higher. He's gaining a ton of steam coming out of the combine. People are loving him. We'll see how it plays out in the draft. And then right now, I was a little conservative, and I feel like I still am being a little conservative where I'm mocking him. Take Travis Hunter. Just take him. I mean, he's going to be a top 4 pick. It sounds like teams are leaning towards him being wide receiver primary. Simcoe, I see you in the chat. Am I wrong there? I think teams are leaning wide receiver primary there. If it almost feels confirmed, then maybe he goes a little bit higher in this rookie draft. But I think at this point, with a little bit of that being unknown, I'm going to go Travis Hunter here. Round out that roster. Let's just look at what McMorrow's cooking up right here. Okay, slot 1. You got Cam Ward, Hampton, Ginty, Tet, Egbuka, Tyler Warren, Quinshon Judkins, Matthew Golden, Travis Hunter. He also has Bucky Irving on his team. He also has Josh Downs. That's a roster. Chat. That is an insane roster, for being totally honest. I know everybody wants to discredit McMorrow. That's the first champion we've ever had. And I think in this new era, we could be building on something right here. So I think McMorrow still has a little bit to add. He's got that second and that fifth pick coming up in that second round, and I think that he can address a couple other positions of need. But I think that's an absolute killer first round for McMorrow. That's straight dominance. He's kind of dictating things, right? Of course, he doesn't get Henderson. That might not matter. Maybe he likes Judkins more. Maybe Amaral likes Judkins more. Who cares? If you get Henderson, Judkins, or Johnson, you can't really go wrong there. Okay, and then he misses out on another running back. But he already has 2 here, 3 here. And then he's also adding that. So he's got 4 running backs on his roster in this scenario. He's pretty set there, I think. Now we're moving on to the Zits. They just traded into this pick. I cannot believe the Cucks gave it up for Terry McLaurin, along with, giving up Jacoby Myers, who might be the Patriots wide receiver 1, paired up with Drake May soon. But, whatever. Insane trade. It happens. Live and learn. Every team goes through those bumps. Simcoe totally left his boys out to dry on that one, but it's a dirty game. It's a dirty game. Now we're moving on to the Zits. Who do I think they're taking? I'm going to go Loveland here. I think that the Zits, they're obviously so strong at every position. Always look to add top-end talent to really any of their position groups, right? If there was like a can't-miss quarterback, which there isn't, I don't think that they'd be wrong to take a quarterback. Of course, they could always add another running back. There's never enough running backs. It's still a good running back draft here. Maybe Bowen feels like he could do that. And then, wide receiver, of course, as well. But I feel like tight end, when you're looking at that roster, is the only spot that isn't bulletproof on the Zits. Loveland, it sounds like he's going to go in the middle of the first round. It really feels almost like he's a lock to go to the Broncos. If that happens, I feel like I know Bowen well enough. I don't think he's going to be able to resist that. So I'm taking Loveland here at that 112. We'll see how things play out with this tight end class, but I think that could be a really nice way to round out that starting roster and possibly get somebody pretty dominant at that position. So that rounds out the first round. I feel like it's pretty standard. No big reaches there. Of course, we just deal with the unique situation that McMorrow is in. But like I said, I just feel like I built an unbelievable roster for him. All right. Now we're in the second round. It's 2 pins. They're making a pick here. They could really use anything but quarterback. I think they're pretty good between Pat Mahomes, Jaden Daniels, and Michael Penix. I think they're going to be all right. I think there's a chance maybe they look to shop one of those quarterbacks and see what they could get. I mean, maybe that's where McMorrow trades a bunch of these picks. But again, I don't advise. I don't advise doing that. This is a best player available situation. They need a little bit of everything. I don't know. Who do I have them picking? Who do I like? I kind of want to go what might be a reach here. Like I said, I don't think that this draft board is totally updated. In chat, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Biashul 210. He just dominated the combine. I do think that he's going to be a guy that rises. Like I said, I feel like after Johnson, it's kind of just a slight drop off in terms of what these prospects are. But this is a guy that just put on an absolute show athletically. He checked all the boxes. He was absolutely insane. I feel like that he's going to be a riser throughout the rest of this draft process. I think he's an exciting guy. I think, what did Lance Zierlein compare him to? I forget now. I'm not sure. But he's a little bit smaller, but he's tough. He plays hard, and he's fast as hell. So I do feel like he could be maybe that next running back up after that elite tier. He brings a lot of speed. I'm kind of guessing here. Like I said, I don't know where 2 pins is at. I don't know what prospects they like. They like to keep their mouths shut on that. They don't communicate too much. But yeah, I mean, I feel like 210. I like it. I like the guy. So, I mean, they need a running back. They need some excitement. I don't know if any of these receivers are necessarily knocking them out of the park right now. So, I just don't think that those are the picks. So, I think go for somebody flashy, go for somebody exciting. Take a guy that's fast as hell and he plays hard. And I think that's the move right there. So, now moving on to McMorrow. So, we got McMorrow, then we got Amaral twice, and then we got McMorrow again. I think this is playing perfectly for McMorrow. If this is how it goes, this is probably one of the, I mean, it's a masterclass. I'm going to go Shadur here. It sounds like Shadur is falling. I just mock draft where they had him late in the first round, and it feels like, what's his name? Cam Ward is starting to distance himself as QB1. It's becoming more of a QB2 versus QB3 debate. But it feels like Shadur and Jackson Dart are more meeting in the middle than it is just Jackson Dart rising up. So we'll see if that means that, Jackson Dart's a mid first rounder or if it's a mid to a late first round situation for these two guys. But again, I don't know if Amaral's a threat to take quarterback here. Maybe this is a trade-in situation for Amaral, one of these two picks. If somebody wants to go and snipe one of these guys, but this is perfect for McMahon, right? Because he can take Shadur here. Now all of a sudden he's got two quarterbacks, right? And then I'm going to go for Amaral. I think he really needs receiver. He didn't address it with that fourth overall pick. Now he can take Luther, and he can take Trey Harris. What did I just do? Come on now. Now Amaral is suddenly looking at, a little bit of a full roster. Luther, he's a guy, it feels like he's losing a little bit of steam while Trey Harris is gaining a bunch of steam. But I mean, Luther's still a guy. He should be firmly in that top four conversation. We'll see, what type of role he lands into. I mean, I feel like a lot of these guys could end up in wide receiver 2 situations, which, isn't totally ideal. But I mean, we've also seen other guys, Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Those guys were drafted as the wide receiver 2s on their team. And, JSN starting to take over as the wide receiver 1, in Seattle, or at least that's what it seemed like at the end of last year. And then Addison, he's not ever going to pass Justin Jefferson, in the pecking order there. But I mean, he's a guy, he's got 20 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. He's flirted with 1,000 yards in both years. So he's been great in his own right. He's been a top, 24 wide receiver in 2 straight seasons, around that. So, I mean, even if that's like the type of thing that you're falling into, Amaral, he needs receivers. He needs depth. Grab 2 wide receivers here, address that position of need. It's not worth taking a quarterback there. Then it just falls to McMorrow again. And he can roll the dice on Jackson Dart. I think Milroe is a guy that could be interesting. I did see Milroe's name getting thrown around in the chat earlier, but I think Dart's gaining the steam here. I think that he's just still a little bit stronger. I think it's worth taking the risk on him right now instead. And now all of a sudden McMorrow is looking at Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, and Jackson Dart. Ideally, at least one of those guys hits. If 2 of them hit, then you have your quarterbacks. God forbid all 3 hit, and then you're just set at that position as well. The masterclass continues for Matt McMorrow. People are going to give me credit, I hope. If he does this and he turns his team around, I really hope people give me my flowers for planting that seed, because I saw McMorrow's mock draft that he made before I did my first one with this strategy. And let me tell you, it was nothing like this. He was going the traditional approach. I don't know what the hell he was thinking. I'm sure he still put together a halfway decent team. This is the way. So when McMorrow turns his franchise totally around because of this draft, I really hope people remember that. I hope I get a share of any money he makes off of this, even if it's $5 that he makes from the highest rookie 1 week or something. So, all right, now we're moving on to Frank's team. What do I think Frank needs? He needs running back. He needs wide receiver. I'm just throwing shit at the wall right now. I don't know. I think he goes wide receiver here. I don't think that it's the top end talent at running back anymore. It's kind of a toss up either way. Frank seems like and correct me if I'm wrong. Is it Jack Besh? Is it Besh that it's pronounced? I think Frank's a Jack Besh guy. I see him on Twitter. I see him mocking the Patriots drafts. I've seen that name thrown around for sure. I think Frank's a Jack Besh guy. So I think when there's not really any wide receiver that's jumping off the board here, I think that's who Frank's going to look to take. That's going to be a day 2 guy, round 2 or round 3. Could end up in a good situation. So, that's a Frank guy. Bub Means. Shout out Bub Means. All right, now we're moving on to Amaral again. Schwoyadell. I'm planting my flag here. I already had him take a running back. I had him take 2 receivers. I feel like he could go either way, right? There's no quarterback that's speaking to me right now. He has Tua, he has Baker. If he wants Milroe to try and build some depth, I say go for it. I don't think that's a bad pick. But I think you should continue to try and take your shots at the running back, take your shots at the wide receiver. I'm planting my flag on a guy right now. That's Dylan Sampson. I don't think he ran the 40 at the combine. He did do some workouts. I think he's pretty damn good. He's coming out of Tennessee. I don't know what he's going to do at his pro day. Um, I just think he's nasty. I think that he plays fast. I think that he's built to be a really good running back. He kind of reminds me of Jalen Wright, who obviously didn't do much last year, but I do think that he can still be a very good pro. But I think Samson's a little bit of a better prospect. I think that after his pro day, I think he will rise. I think on draft day he will rise. I think that Samson's going to be a guy that's going to be a popular pick in this area. Maybe by the time of the rookie draft, he's actually going further up in the round. But I think Sampson's the guy that you want to take off the board if you're looking running back at this point in the draft. So I'm going to go with Sampson in this spot for Emerald. Then we're moving on to the 8th pick. I guess he traded Charbonnet for this. Good for him. I don't know. I mean, of course, this is a very top-heavy, loaded team at the top, the reigning champ. There's not like a dying need at any position, but it's kind of the same thing I was saying about the Zits, right? Nobody's perfect. You can always improve somewhere. Tight end, just like the Zits, is the one position that I don't think is bulletproof here either. He traded Mark Andrews. He got David Njoku, who, I get it. Njoku's put up some big games. I'm personally not crazy about him. So I think tight end's kind of the move here for the reigning champs. This is another guy that I like. I guess you want to call it a flag plant. I'm taking Mason Taylor. Killed it at the combine. Looked like an absolute pro. Has the bloodline. Son of Jason Taylor. Feels like a Team Slippery Pete pick. He is the nephew of Joy Taylor. That just kind of makes sense to me. So for a few reasons, right? Team need, and then also just, the resume of this prospect. I think Mason Taylor's the pick. Try and land yourself a potential, tight end of the future for your team. You're already pretty much set at quarterback, pretty much set at running back, pretty much set at wide receiver. You can try and take a bench player at that position, or you can try and take your tight end of the future. So I think Mason Taylor's going to be, a more desired prospect, around this time of the rookie draft. So, all right. Now we're moving on to the Cucks. We got 4 picks left. I'm not doing a third round. I might never do a third round. It just feels like a lot. Maybe after the NFL draft, I'll do a third round. I'll have more answers. I'll have a better idea. But I'm not going to try and diagnose too much beyond the second round. 24 picks feels like enough. Give me a break. All right, we got the Cucks for 3 more, and then we also got Frank sandwiched in between there. The Cucks, they need pass catchers. And they could use some youth at running back, right? So I don't know if the running back is there right now. I think this is more of a pass catcher spot for them. I'm going to go another tight end. Elijah Arroyo, I believe he's out of Miami, right? I'm thinking of the right guy. Is that correct, chat? He could be another guy that goes, high up in the, mid-second round. Maybe he sneaks into the first. I've seen an idea where maybe he's the Broncos. I was talking about Loveland going to the Broncos in the first. Maybe the Broncos adjust a different position in the first and they take Arroyo in the second. I have seen that floating around on the internet. But I think Arroyo is going to be another guy. I think this is a really good tight end class. I think that these 4 especially, and there's one more guy that I'll get to in a second. But I think these are good tight ends. They need a pass catcher. They need a tight end. They have Goddard. They have Kmet, who I do think can be good. He was at Ben Johnson's press conference. I feel like that bodes well for him. We know what Ben Johnson was doing with tight ends in Detroit. Kmet was really good when he had a offensive coordinator that focused on the tight end, and then he brought in Waldron, and Waldron doesn't throw to tight ends. And I tried to warn a former team in this league about it. That was called a fool, whatever. But I still think they should go after tight end. It's not they don't quite have an answer there. I've seen people talking about Goddard getting potentially cut, from Philly with how they've been, taking care of Bradbury and Darius Slay and everything. So we'll see. Go for a tight end here. You still need an answer. Take a guy that I think is going to be ranked pretty highly. Then we're going to go after a wide receiver. I'm going to go Isaiah Bond here. He could end up being a steal. The only guy I've ever seen get shit for running a 4.39 40. He hit one of the fastest top speeds, I think maybe in like combine history or something like that. I don't know. I saw his top speed getting compared to Xavier Worthy. So I understand that he didn't match Xavier Worthy's time, but at one point in that run, he was running as fast as Xavier Worthy was. So, cut the kid some fucking slack. I don't know. Somebody called it, what was it, like fantasy football data said after his disappointing 40, he ran a 4.39. It's a wide receiver. What are we talking about here? So I think this is a guy, he's going to fall, a little bit because of that. He has like some stink on him because of the combine. It's bizarre, but they need a pass catcher. I don't know if he's ever going to be a wide receiver one or anything, but I mean, we're talking about the 10th pick in the second round here. What the hell do you want? Grab a guy here that is fast. We know he can play. He played at a big program. We've seen some good guys. Xavier Worthy came out. He was unbelievable. A.D. Mitchell came out. He might be a scrub, but we'll see. Maybe that's Golden and Bond here. I don't know. Moving on to Frank. I forget what I have Frank doing here. Oh, that's right. Scatabo. I don't know. Just feels like a guy Frank would want. And he's a fucking dog. You're getting him at the end of the second round. He needs a running back. I don't feel like Swift or Dobbins are necessarily franchise cornerstones. I mean, Dobbins is a free agent this year, right? And then Swift, I mean, I understand the excitement. Ben Johnson coming in and we just had an offense with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery where they were both top 10 running backs and, all that. But when Ben Johnson took over as the OC for the Lions, they got Swift's ass the fuck out of there, and then they drafted one guy and they signed another guy. So I wouldn't be totally confident in Ben Johnson like loving DeAndre Swift. So for some reason, wherever Swift goes, he never gets goal line touches. He seems to have a weird knack for getting tackled at the 1 yard line. So he puts up the good games. He can have the big yardage games. He can be really good at times, but I would not be feeling totally set at running back if I was Frank sitting there with Dobbins and Swift. So, take a swing here, get a guy who was just carrying his team in college, and, maybe he ends up being an absolute steal. So, I'd go with Scatabo there and just get yourself a running back. I don't think that there's any other guy that's necessarily jumping off the board. And then to round out the second round, I think the Cuck should just take another swing at tight end. It's a guy I really like. He did take a hit after the combine this week. His weren't eye-popping. But at the same time, I mean, watch the fucking tape. It's unbelievable, right? Seeing the numbers, comparing the size, comparing the numbers, comparing the, schedule that he came out of. And, I mean, he played what? Penn State and Texas A&M, and he went absolutely insane against them. So if you want to say they didn't play anybody, I mean, look at those two games. When he did play people, he still went crazy. So, spare me that shit. But Harold Fannin, I think he's nasty. I think that he needs to be drafted into a really good spot. It feels more like Isaiah Likely to me than it did maybe a week ago. I thought that he was, I almost felt like having the hot take of ranking him as the top tight end, but that has taken a bit of a hit for me. Like I said, I kind of get Isaiah Likely vibes from him. I think that he might need a little bit of time to catch on, but he's a really good athlete. He can play after the catch. And then he can go out there and he can play like a wide receiver. So, I mean, what more do you want from a fantasy tight end? So getting him at the end of the second round, taking 2 shots at tight end here. I know that they want a tight end. They also need a tight end. And like I said, they need pass catchers. So, position of need, address it here. Hope that one of these guys hits, maybe both of them hit, and then you can do more with that. But yeah, I mean, Fannin, that's who I have rounding it out. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Take one last look before I do. Enjoy. All right. That's all I got, I think. Thank you, chat, for tuning in. I don't know. I keep saying I don't know when we'll be back, and then I end up back the very next week. Free agency starts a week from now. Yeah, I'll do an episode next week. Free agency reaction. Maybe that'll lead to some trades as well. And then fuck it. I mean, maybe I'll do a mock draft the week after that. I'll do a mock draft the week after that, maybe get a clearer picture on what some teams want. I mean, we've already seen it, right? The Pats, they want to try to be aggressive in free agency, and then they can try and fill in the cracks after that with the draft. So, yeah, you know what? Once we get the free agency, we'll get a clearer picture of what some teams want to do in the draft. Maybe that clears up some things with the mock drafts. I don't really know what the pro day schedules are. We'll look into that and we can build it in. But, I'm loving the live stream stuff. Maybe I'll try and do like a pre-recorded episode, but I'm kind of loving this shit too much. If somebody wants to join me, then it's too damn bad. But whatever. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back next week for a free agency reaction.